Welcome back, my friends. I have a tale to tell before the tavern closes tonight. I have come a very long way and seen so many places. I have heard many stories, and I am happy to be here now to share them with you. So, gather round. Last we met, I told you all a tale with a very unpleasant end. I promised a more light-hearted story this day, and I have settled upon one of my favorites. Deep in the southern swamps, where the rain and hurricane wreak havoc, where thieves and bandits linger in every silent shadow, where the kings are just as bad as the bandits. Where your next meal very well may bite you back, we meet Tristan Reletonbeau, a young mangrove elf with long, curly red hair that cascaded like wild vines down his brown face and around his emerald eyes. See, the mangrove elves are just one subset of the massive clan of elves that once called Lorelei home. However long ago the mangrove elves all mysteriously vanished on large boats to the south. Those who chose to stay would be Tristan's ancestors. Their stories would be passed down to young Tristan from hundreds of years of his people telling tales. His favorite was the tale of the troll slayer. He would throw his blanket over his shoulders and arm himself with a stick and stab at his father's big belly, declaring himself to be the next great troll hunter. He would wander the mangrove swamps for hours when his father didn't need him to help mill wheat, hunting for a troll asleep and unaware to begin his great purge of the greedy beasts. However, Tristan aged. His dreams of trolls and glory were replaced by the infinite void behind his eyes in the endless dark of sleep. His stick grew dusty and eventually returned to the swamp along with any ideas of a grand future as a killer of great beasts. Tristan accepted the life of a miller. Day in, day out, feed the wheat to the water wheel millstone. Day in, day out, fix the millstone. Day in, day out, argue with the ugly man who sold the wheat. Day in, day out, go to bed. No trolls in his life. Tristan had become banal. He had nothing but the love of a boy he was told to marry when he was young. However, the love between them had been siphoned, redirected. Though Tristan didn't know it, his husband had been madly in love with another from town. When he finally learned, something snapped in him. Tristan left town to wander the mangroves again. Out in the swamp that reared him, the bugs singing their mournful melodies to the hurricane, Tristan walked for days and days and days. His clothes became rags draped loosely over his starving carcass that refused to die out of sheer monotony. That's when he saw it. Laying in a swamp clearing was a large creature with a shell like a turtle, sleeping under a large tree with its massive 3-fingered hands on its belly. Its hair grew in only atop its head and was wavy as seaweed. Its mouth was a sharp beak of gray skin. A troll. Tristan was no warrior, but he decided that death at the hands of a troll was far more interesting than a death dying of heartbreak and boredom. He grabbed a big stick and trudged through the swamp water to the sleeping beast who cooed and gurgled happily in its sleep. Tristan raised the large branch so that if the creature stirred, he was ready for battle. Then he tripped over something under the murky green water with a shriek. The troll awoke and bounded towards our hero, its yellow eyes locked on the elf. Tristan shut his eyes tight, suddenly not ready to perish. Then he looked up. The troll had squat down and was staring at the mud. Tristan looked around and saw that during his fall his coin purse had split. Shining currency scattered across the dirt. The troll with one large finger took each coin and made tiny piles before looking up at Tristan with what could have been a smile and made an odd sound, As though it was mimicking merchant speak, it said,
12.
Tristan just stared at the creature. Surely it couldn't count. He removed one coin. The troll unmade its piles, then remade them again.
11.
It said. Again Tristan removed a few coins, and the troll let out a slight gurgle before moving the coins around and saying,
7.
You see, trolls are not one of the clans. They are not as we are, capable of self-reflective thought, but they can count incredibly well, and they can mimic the voice of sounds they hear and associate terms. Long ago, the elves of Lorelei trained trolls to be the keepers of toll roads and tax collections. However, many years have passed since then, and trolls have returned to being seen as wild beasts, monsters. Tristan sat, mystified by the troll who sat beside him counting pebbles and coins and sniffing at the air for something it deemed acceptable prey. Eventually the beast stood up suddenly. Tristan flinched and protected himself with his arms, but when he looked up again, the troll was wading around in the water, eyes scanning the murky surface, before suddenly reaching down and pulling a catfish out of the water with an elated shriek. Tristan followed this troll around the swamp for days, electing to call him Barrow. Tristan found himself stunned by the creature. It would wander, sleep, and eat, and that was about it. He found it fascinating how much he related to the beast. The monotony of his own life reflected in the creature he had always believed to be some massive monster of pure destruction. But just like himself, it's a survivor. Soon spring came around. Tristan ate fish and plants and slept under the mangrove trees with his new friend. And as the rain became hot again, and the bugs seemed to multiply by the hundreds, Tristan noticed a new behavior in his friend Barrow the troll. He was constantly sniffing the air, letting out a soft whistling sound and then sniffing the air again. Tristan did not have to wait long for answers, as Barrow began to wander in a specific direction where they soon met a female troll. Her dark hair was thicker, her beak a touch smaller, her eyes a bit wider. Tristan didn't watch through the next parts. Soon enough, however, the female, who Tristan named Nora, had 2 large eggs, roughly the size of a mountain-clan dwarven child. A season passed as the troll couple carried their large eggs around the swamp, eventually settling in a small clearing deep in the swamp. Tristan was happy. When the babies hatched, he was seemingly trusted near them as his presence had become so natural to the parent trolls. He would eat with them, sitting all day under the hot rain of the swamps. But it didn't last. One morning, the humming of bugs and the drumming of rain was not the only sound that could be heard in the troll's clearing. Saws. Hundreds of saws. The kingdom of Lyonce was soon to be under attack, and to reinforce their cities they began to tear down any trees they could. The trolls looked frightened, and Tristan went to investigate. He saw a large group of woodsmen tearing down trees and hauling them into wagons. He saw soldiers burning the ground with heavy torches and magic so that they could farm the land later. The flames grew uncontrollable, and Tristan ran back to his friends. He led them through the swamps towards safety, but the fire spread too fast. Tristan was able to save Barrow and Nora, and one of their babies. The other wasn't fast enough. Tristan was furious. In his rage, something began to tug at his heart, a promise to the very land itself. Tristan was no mage. He could not world speak. But he found the trolls suddenly understood him, his will, his feelings. Tristan wandered the southern swamps, collecting every coin troll he could find, promising them land that would not be stolen and coin to be counted. They were going to build the Troll Kingdom. In his fury, Tristan lost sight of what really mattered to him, the trolls and their safety. But he was reminded when a very small troll brought him a pile of leaves and flowers. Tristan asked the spirit of the creature why it had brought him such a collection, and the world told Tristan it was so he could fashion a crown fit for a leader. The elf in his flower crown, with an army of 70 trolls, began to march through the kingdom of Lyons. Tristan's eyes remained locked on a small fort built atop a hill overlooking the swamps. His trolls ignored any civilians that crossed their path, listening to the decree of their leader. The goal here wasn't to kill, just to claim a home in which they could reside. When they arrived at the gates, Tristan cried to the guardsmen. He decreed that he was Tristan the Troll Lord, that they had stolen his home, and now he was here to take theirs. He told them that none of them had to perish, as long as they would surrender the fort to him. There was a moment of silence, and then laughter. Tristan did not like that one bit, so Barrow the Troll hefted a large stone and hurled it into the gates, the wood splintering and snapping but not falling. The laughter had stopped as the guardsmen realized the threat was greater than they had anticipated. Most monster slayers will tell you a troll is easy to kill, but 70 hurling boulders together, now that is a real threat. Stone after stone thrown into the wall, the gate. Eventually the wood relented and the army of 70 coin trolls and their elven leader charged the battlements. The trolls managed to defeat their enemies with ease, killing a few on accident, knocking many out of the fight with swings of their massive hands. When the day was won, Tristan imprisoned the soldiers in the dungeons, and set about helping the trolls to settle in. Some slept in the stables, others on the table in the mess hall. Tristan used old curtains and tabards as blankets for his new friends, before laying down and sleeping under the stars in the courtyard. He awoke to the sound of war horns. Tristan wandered to the wall to look out over the swamp where the Lyons army had gathered to reclaim their fortress. No matter how strong his force of trolls was, they were outnumbered. His eyes scanned the sky for an answer, a path to survival. That tightness returned to his chest as he realized that should he fail, his family would fall here, each and every one of them. He wandered from the fort down to the war camp of the Lyons commander and perched upon a table as he demanded an audience with the nobleman. The noble turned his nose up at Tristan's stench. Sleeping next to trolls in a muggy swamp, that doesn't lend itself to the finest of scents. However, Tristan did not react to the insult. He asked, tilting his head as he spoke, what could possibly make this problem go away? The commander said matter-of-factly that only a total of 8,000 coins could cover the cost of the fort, and an apology fee of 3,000 coins for the insult of attacking a military fortress. Tristan just nodded and hopped off the table. The short elf in his flower crown and tattered cloak raised one hand, 4 fingers raised. 4 days. That's all he would need. Now the commander didn't know what to do with that response, but figured the wager was impossible to win for the small mangrove elf. Might as well laze in the sun for 4 days before destroying the army of trolls and their strange, stinky leader. Tristan ran back up to the fortress and gathered his trolls, telling them of his plans. They all agreed with his speaking to the spirit inside of their cores, and the grey beasts scattered across the kingdom of Lyons. The trolls set up at every crossroad, every fork in the road. Every traveler, merchant, and otherwise that wandered across their path was asked to pay a toll of 19 coins. Most figured their lives were under threat and gave the mimicking beast the coins. Those who couldn't pay realized quickly that the trolls didn't pursue them or even ask a second time. News spread through the kingdom that trolls had begun collecting donations for something, and it became a spectacle all were fascinated to see. Some left their homes just to go pay the trolls whatever they could. In rare cases, people from other nations would make the trip just to see the toll trolls of Lyons and pay them the donation of 19 coins they requested. Each time the trolls would sit and count the coins they were offered, and drop them into a large sack, turning back to whomever donated with a strange
Thank you.
of 100 mimicked sounds. At the end of the 4th day, the trolls returned to the fort, hauling sacks of coin. One, according to some sources, returned singing the World Song, which she had learned from a Belgrav bard. Tristan took the bag of coins, and with full certainty in his victory, dropped them upon the commander's table one at a time. The commander sat and counted for what felt like an eternity, until he finally shook his head. The total needed was 11,000. The trolls had returned with 10,989. He raised his hand to give the order for his men to attack, but Tristan shook his head. Barrow the troll, Tristan's first friend, let out a chipper squawk and sat down, counting the coins out loud by himself. More time passed. Barrow counted 11,023. Then Nora, Barrow's mate, counted 11,023. Then another troll, then another. Through the night, all 70 trolls made sure the total was correct. Tristan sat back with a smirk on his face. The noble commander yelled in outrage, stating that it didn't matter, telling his men to be ready for war, but as soon as they drew their weapons they were interrupted. The King of Leonce had come to see this spectacle. He had heard from travelers and advisors alike of the trolls collecting on the roads, and he had to see it with his own eyes. He shook Tristan's hand and told him to keep the fort. The noble commander was stunned, but the king cared not, offering for Tristan and his trolls to take the area around the fort permanently, so long as they collected donations years round to use as their taxes. Tristan agreed. The troll fort still stands today. Tristan living in the stone structure in the swamp with hundreds of trolls wandering around the bog, or sleeping within its walls. The coin trolls of Tristan Reletombeau can be seen at every crossroad throughout the kingdom of Leonce. Tristan has built a home and a life he never could have dreamt possible. So to those of you who feel beaten down, the monotony and slog of day in, day out, banal mundanity, wander the wilds. Go looking for trolls. You may very well find your true purpose hidden in the rain and the mangrove trees. Thank you all for being here tonight. This story is a silly one, but I feel its message still holds weight. Next we meet, I will tell you another story of the Southlands, in the Otarak jungle. The people of the Kingdom of Saws were forced to adapt quickly to the War of Sorrows. However, their unorthodox methods would change the fate of their nation forever. Until then, I have a tome of tales from every nation to share with you all. I have seen many monsters, many heroes. I have learned of the magic offered by the gods and the magic humans can conjure for themselves. I have seen warfare, and I have tales of peace. I cannot wait to tell them all to you. Good night, and thank you. Legends of Lorelei is an immersive, fantasy fiction audio drama produced by Livewire Stories. This show is written and produced by Gwen Fullman. The music you heard in this episode was composed and performed by Gwen Fullman. The Bard is played by Gwen Fullman. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please consider subscribing to our Patreon at Livewire Multimedia Stories to receive episodes a week early for only $2 a month. You will also receive updates on our projects, like the tabletop role-playing games or short films we've been working on. Check out our website at livewiretabletop.wixsite.com/livewire. subscribe to us on YouTube, or join our Discord server in the description below. The best way you can support us is to show this to a friend. Thank you. And a special thank you to our Patreon supporters, without whom this wouldn't be possible.